Good evening, everyone. Welcome to A Little Bit of Light. We're going to talk about Chanukah. And I want to share with you some thoughts about Chanukah from the writings of Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, the famous 19th century German rabbi. And when he discusses Chanukah, of course, he starts with a short summary of the history, which is that Alexander the Great had conquered the land of Israel, and when he died, his kingdom was divided up amongst his generals. And eventually, the land of Israel found itself under the control of the Seleucids of Syria. When the leader of Syria, of the Seleucids, was a man named Antiochus Epiphanes, who was a very cruel man, he led a war against the Jewish people, not against their body, but against their spirit, against their essence. He led a war against the Torah. And Rav Hirsch points out very interestingly, and I'm going to read to you a few excerpts from what he writes. Egypt enslaved Israel's body. Babylon and later Rome were conquerors of countries. Persia was even kind to vanquished provinces. All represented overwhelming might and pursued greater power and wider conquest. They were about control. To Antiochus, the point was not the Jewish people's bodies, not their money, but rather, as we said before, their spirit, their essence. It was against the Torah. Observance of the Torah meant death. And as Rav Hirsch points out, Antiochus was the first to put the Jewish people to a trial that they would face over many centuries. And that trial was whether the trial was, what would they choose? The death of the spirit or the death of the body? Would they give up the Torah, or would they be willing to give up their lives for the Torah? And that's what began with Antiochus' decrees. And when everything seemed lost, arose a man named Matisyahu, and he and his sons led a rebellion. But a rebellion that Rav Hirsch writes was not a rebellion where he counted the number of those who were like-minded, but rather he had faith in the Spirit of Hashem, who endows the Spirit with victory over ruthless violence. It didn't matter how many people were supporting him. He put his trust in Hashem and understood that Hashem is the one that would protect the Spirit and keep the spirit of the Jewish people going. And when Hashem showed how he protects the spirit of the Jewish people through the victories of Matisyahu, he then gave a sign to the Jewish people and to the world that he will always protect the spirit of the Jewish people, and that was the miracle of the menorah, where only a flask that should have burned for one night burned for 8 nights. That was the sign that Hashem is there to always protect the spirit of the Jewish people. And Rav Hirsch concludes, and I will read to you what he writes. Each year when the Chanukah season recurs, lights are kindled in every home of Israel and by every son of Israel. And the events of those days are celebrated in word and in song, praying homage to God. Thus the darkened courses of Israel are lit up by this message. The spiritual light of Israel will never be dimmed. And even if round about you, everything becomes defiled by the oppression of the time, so long as the light remains pure within the confines of only one house or within the breast of only one man, live on joyfully amid all the wanton aberration, even die joyfully under the frenzy of a madman. For the spiritual life of Israel is saved. God watches over it, and even by the light of one man, he rekindles it anew. That is the message of Chanukah. That's the message of lighting the menorah in our homes, to bring out that all you need is one home, is one heart. If the light of Torah continues to burn in just one of those places, then the Jewish people will survive. The spirit of the Jewish people will always live on, because Hashem will always be there to make sure that it burns and continues. That was the miracle of Chanukah, and that's the message of Chanukah. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.